Okay, Casey. So NFL wildcard weekend, man. It was kind of crazy. It was kind of a crazy weekend. It like I think you and I hit pretty good on our game picks. Like I think I was 5-1 and you were 6-0
Yeah,
on the
it's a little
actual.
bit different.
Yeah. But it's. I mean, I'm not talking about the betting side of it. I'm just talking about
No,
the,
yeah.
just the analysis. I think we did kind
And
of
how the
well.
games might go, how they
Yeah,
might play out.
just
Uh,
like we were kind of spot on game scripts and stuff. No, I mean I didn't have Jacksonville making a 28-point comeback or whatever it was, but
and we
we
didn't
had
have Miami keeping it that close.
we didn't we didn't have a
Although
blowout.
I mean, hey, Skylar Thompson, 2023, like
Hey, he sucks a little bit less today. We'll say
he
that.
looked.
Yeah.
I felt bad. Some of those early pass drops, I was like, oh, Cade, I hope you're seeing these guys ruin Skylar Thompson's chances because
Yeah. I texted you back. I said it's because they don't want to be associated with a ball that he touched. So they're just like, icky, get away from me. But okay,
uh,
first game of the week, the Seahawks and the 49ers. This game, it stayed pretty close. I was at, whenever we were talking about it, I said that I didn't think that this game was as big of a slam dunk as everybody said it was. And for the first half, I think I was right. The
yeah, it looked good.
Seahawks put up a really good fight. They were winning at halftime, but then it just Brock Purdy started doing what Brock Purdy is known for, which is being a beast. and
Mm-hmm.
and the 49ers just kind of ran away with it, outscoring the Seahawks 25-6 in the second half. It was over pretty quickly after that, or it felt
Yeah,
over.
I will say one area that we missed or I missed my calculator was that I thought a lot more of these games would be lower scoring. Um,
Yes,
and
very
I
high
was kind of
scoring.
surprised by that. I was also surprised that the Cowboys game was as low as it was
But
after seeing the first few play out. I mean, 45 is still a pretty
yeah, we'll talk.
decent NFL number.
We'll talk about the Cowboys game
Yeah.
in just a little bit.
This
But
I was impressed with the second half, just Brock Purdy coming out, and I really liked hearing Peyton Manning because everybody wanted to talk about halftime adjustments this weekend, and Peyton Manning on the ESPN cast said that's the biggest myth in football. You go in there, you use the restroom, you eat some oranges, and coach says, "Let's go back out there and play." So, did Shanahan go in and hype them up and do some magic on the board to really scheme things up, or did they just kind of wake up and go, "Hey, this is when the season starts and it's time to play football"?
I don't know. I think there's probably like some schematic adjustments and things like that. But I don't think I think the myth of the halftime like rally speech. It's like like what's his name Lombardi going in there
Yeah.
and hyping up the Packers or whatever. Like I don't think that happens. But anyways, yeah, I thought Geno Smith played really good in this
Mm-hmm.
game. 98.9 quarterback rating, 65.8 QBR, 25 for 35, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the one interception though. I have been low on Geno all year, but I was actually pretty impressed with him, at least for the first half. But Brock Purdy, I mean, what he did in this game, 89.5 total QBR. That's unbelievable for Mr. Irrelevant, in his rookie
Mm-hmm.
season. That's just terrific. Christian McCaffrey was terrific also. He had 15 carries for 119 yards, 2 catches for 17 yards and a touchdown. He was terrific. Debo Samuel had a great game, 6 catches,
I think he's
133
back.
yards. Well, he's been very inconsistent this year,
Yeah. Well,
especially
he's been
during.
hurt too.
That's
Yeah.
actually been kind of a staple of his career. Last year was
Yeah.
the exception to that, but
Mm-hmm.
overall, I thought it was a good game, but it ended up being kind of chalky. Everybody kind of expected the 49ers to win, and that's exactly what happened. Then,
I
go ahead.
I was gonna say there's some interesting things when I was watching the game and as I look back that I find interesting is that they pulled off this kind of a win and they didn't really involve. We've seen them in other games this year involve Elijah Mitchell more, even with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and those two guys really didn't do a whole lot. Ayuk had some big catches, but no TDs and not a lot of targets. But I think about like if let's say the Cowboys go and shut down McCaffrey and Debo, like what are you going to do about these other guys? This is one of the biggest. I think their team would. What's wild to me is even though it's Brock Purdy and even though there's a lot of question marks, like who do you stop? Who do you choose to stop on a given Sunday to guarantee you're going to win the game? You could take away Justin Jefferson of the Vikings or Jamar Chase. Well, not Jamar Chase. The Bengals are another team like this, but there are instances where you may look at a team and say, as long as you can get this one guy stopped, but I don't know that you could do that with the 49ers. You got to play a nearly perfect defensive game. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're getting into that part of the season where I think the defenses remaining are the best chance to do it. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that Christian McCaffrey trade is really proving to be one of the savviest moves of the season. Usually I'm not a big advocate of trading for running backs, but I think that trade has really paid off for the 49ers just because it completes that team. It gives them enough playmakers to where they're virtually impossible to game plan for. When you mix in that terrific defense, they're definitely a threat, even if they do have a 7th-round rookie at quarterback. Anyways, moving on to the next game on Saturday. The best game, in my opinion, of Wild Card Weekend, the Jaguars versus the Chargers.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. 27 to, I mean, what was the worst point in the game? I know 27-7 is when I kind of looked over.
I think it was 27-0, wasn't it? At one point,
it might have been.
Yeah,
but it was when they scored that touchdown at the end of the half. Because I mean, I was kind of like laying on the couch, chilling, not really engaging with the game. And then I see they scored the TD, and I'm like, this feels like one of those moments in NFL history where people are turning it off, people are leaving the stadium, and then they're gonna see their team make this historic comeback. Not quite like the Vikings-Colts comeback, but a pretty good one nonetheless. And as soon as the second half started, you just saw the Jaguars were a totally different team than the Chargers. And then it starts to bring to mind these instances where that first pick was a tipped ball. And it's like, hey, was that a little bit fluky? Sure. Did it seem like maybe they were forcing Trevor Lawrence to go to his first read? Maybe. Or maybe he was doing that. But then it's like they shook it off. They didn't give up on it, and they came back. And this was a really good comeback to watch.
Dude, the Jaguars made a 27-point comeback without a turnover. They didn't get a turnover, and that is impossible, dude. That Trevor Lawrence, I think they had 5 turnovers overall, but Trevor Lawrence threw 4 first-half interceptions and 1. Yeah. I will say this about this game. I think that in NFL history, I can never remember a game where a quarterback had a first half that was that bad and then a second half that was that good. I don't know if I can ever remember a bigger gap in performance half to half than Trevor Lawrence in this past game.
They talked about it. There was one time that something like this happened. I don't know if they were all in the first half, but okay, no, they ended up losing this. But Ben Roethlisberger threw 4 picks to the Cleveland Browns in 2021 during the AFC wildcard game, and they almost came back. They lost 48-37.
Yeah.
But it was one of those like similar type performances where it's like can't get anything right, can't get anything wrong. They just kind of flipped the script on them.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, man. I'm a big Brandon Staley guy, but after this loss, it's really hard to say the Chargers should keep him. I mean, there have been so many giant faux pas during his tenure that I almost think you have to let him go. But apparently, I'm looking here, they're choosing to kind of roll with him. They're gonna keep him. And I think that's probably the right decision, but emotionally it's just like, how does that fan base survive another season of Brandon Staley if this continues? I mean, I don't know.
Look, especially if they turn out with like a really good offseason and they get them all hyped up again, and then this is our year. We hear it every year for the Chargers, and then they start off maybe flat like 3-5 or 2-5.
Have some injuries.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You got to be able to overcome injuries because 49ers have overcome injuries. All kinds of teams this year have. I mean, you've seen the Bills have gone through situations where their secondary is depleted. So there's a lot of, and that's part of the game, unfortunately. And so
It feels
Staley's got to
like
figure something out.
it feels like he is going to be on the thinnest of ice next year. It feels like a midseason firing could easily be in the works if even if they start out like 3-3 or 4-4
Yeah.
or something like
My
that.
question is, who do you prefer? Like, can you really go and get Sean Payton? Because that would be the obvious for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have a guy like Justin Herbert, and I think it would make a ton of sense for them. But who do you go and get that's going to right the ship here this year?
There are a lot of great coaches out there. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that too much, but for now they're staying with Brandon, and I love Brandon Staley. I think he's a great coach that's been incredibly unlucky, and some of that is his own fault. He has created his own bad luck, but a lot of that really is just like variance and him getting the short end of the stick. And if he does get fired, I hope he lands with somebody else. But what I will say to kind of wrap up on this game, in my opinion, this is Trevor Lawrence's come out party. I think that first half was prototypical of everything that has been wrong with Trevor Lawrence through the first 2 years of his career. It was and then the second half was him purging himself of all of that. I think that from here forward, I think that we could see a completely different Trevor Lawrence, a guy that elevates himself to be one of the 5-6 best quarterbacks in the league. And I think that if that's true, if that is the case, the Jaguars could be one of those teams that make a magical run to the Super Bowl. I'm not counting them out after watching this game. I'm really not.
They I know we talked about quarterbacks in general last week, and he was one of those guys that I was saying I think I have long term ahead of like a Josh Allen and maybe even a Mahomes. But him and Burrow, I really think we're going to see. I don't say we're going to see. I think we have a shot at seeing a Trevor Lawrence Joe Burrow matchup in the AFC Championship game. Yeah. It's a long shot. Both those teams are underdogs. I've actually been looking at it. I think plus 360 is great. That's all I'll say on the Jags next week. But I really like what we saw out of him in that second half. And then the Jags there's a lot to get excited about for their fan base going forward.
There is. I'm very happy for them because they are a long suffering fan base.
Last year hurt bad for them too.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. The Bills and the Dolphins the next day. And this game was kind of incredible. It is honestly unbelievable to me that the Dolphins were able to get this game within 3 points and were able to score 31 in this game. Because Skylar Thompson was not good. He was not good. 18 of 45, 220, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, a 22.6 QBR, and a 44.7 quarterback rating. He was awful.
They ran for 2 yards a carry. Just terrible.
But Josh Allen, as we have occasionally seen with him, he will have these games where he just can't get out of his own way. He had 2 interceptions. They were turning the ball over. He was missing easy throws occasionally. But then he was doing just enough of the incredible things that we know Josh Allen is capable of to just barely squeak out this win. And their defense was really unimpressive to me too. Like I don't know. This game did not make me optimistic about the Bills' chances for the rest of the playoffs. And it really I don't know. To me, the Miami Dolphins right now are the most mysterious team in the NFL because you don't know what's going on with Tua. You don't know like what their plans are for the quarterback position. They don't really have any draft capital that they can go out and get another quarterback if Tua isn't going to be there. Skylar Thompson certainly isn't the answer. But the problem is the team is so good. This is a really good roster. They just their quarterback situation is chaotic. But I was really impressed with the Dolphins overall in this game, just their roster in general. And I'm really unenthused about the Bills moving forward.
Yeah, it's his 7th 2 interception game or 8th 2 interception game on the season. That's just too many for a guy of that caliber.
That's wild. Why?
because he then has to rely on actually picking up the yards and the scores after that. And again, it's almost like you're a key injury away from, throwing a game away. So I don't think he's as invincible as people like to talk about, although I do really like Josh Allen and I think he's a great quarterback. It does seem like this year is different than last year. And maybe it's just kind of that. I mean, what's he in year 5, year 4, year 5? So maybe it's an early career hiccup he's having.
Mm-hmm.
Because we often see guys who bad rookie season, okay sophomore season, and then it's like the third year shine, like Jalen Hurts is going through right now. And I think that's sort of what it is for Josh Allen, is he's not in that anymore. And also Mahomes isn't. So now everybody wants to talk about his interceptions that he has. But I still think at this point I'd still say Mahomes is a little bit better than Josh Allen. But I also think this game was evidence of what a lot of people, was sort of straddling the gambling line here, but in the gambling community say is like a letdown spot, a look ahead spot. You're not worried about this opponent. Your defense isn't really scheming for this opponent. They're getting ready to play the Bengals next week. So they're going ahead and getting things prepared. And, or who is the other option? It's either the Bengals or the Ravens, right?
I don't remember.
I can't remember offhand, but I just feel like this is a situation where, as professional athletes, you play in the early game on a Sunday. It's kind of a weird week. It's been a long season. You've got the Damar Hamlin injury still kind of looming over you, even though he's back and he's healthy with the team, not playing. But I feel like that's just kind of what this was. I don't have any reason to be worried about this defense next week, because I think that was an issue. That would have been why they lost. Is Josh Allen threw some picks, but he also did enough on his side. They would have lost because the defense couldn't make that final stop. They ended up doing it, and I think next week we're going to see a great game between the Bengals and the Bills. But ultimately, I still think the Bengals will win. I just think the Bengals are a little bit better.
Yeah, to me, that's by far the most interesting game of the divisional round, is the Bills versus the Bengals, because I agree. I think both teams are. I think they're as evenly matched as any teams that we've seen in the playoffs so far, and I think that whoever wins that game has a real opportunity to win it all. But anyways, okay, moving on, we have the Giants and the Vikings, and we were all over this. We had the Giants upsetting the Vikings. We went through, and something we didn't talk about on the last show that we did, but something that me and you talked about afterwards whenever I really dug into it. The Giants' resume is way more impressive than I initially thought it was. They have not lost a game to a team with a losing record this year. 6 of their 7 losses were to playoff teams, and the one loss that wasn't was to the Detroit Lions, who only missed the playoffs by a tiebreaker. That's extremely impressive. And when you couple that with the Vikings and their point differential problems and how lucky they've been this year, I think that it was I'm impressed. Like, it's not easy to say that a 13-4 team is going to lose to a team that's 9-7-1. But I think if there was ever a spot for it to happen, this was it, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think they're the most battle-tested team for sure.
And I will say, I will give you credit on this, but Daniel Jones in this game looked like the best quarterback in the NFC wild card, and maybe even in the NFC playoffs, depending on how you feel about Jalen Hurts in this game. I still don't think he's...
And that's all I was saying, is in this moment, right now, these next couple of weeks. But I think...
That's not what you were saying.
I wasn't saying he's the best, like, going forward forever. I said, like, in this moment, like, we're going to have a flat Jalen Hurts. We got an aging, tired Tom Brady. But I'll also say, Dak Prescott didn't make any mistakes. Brock Purdy didn't really make any mistakes. I really liked what I saw out of those guys. Mm-hmm. So it's not as clear cut. I have it. It's so hard for me to say that, and I love the Brock Purdy story, but it's so hard for me to say that that's a conversation yet. Yeah. When you have a guy with 4 years experience, and I know a lot of people like to hate on Daniel Jones. That's because he's in New York. We love to hate New York quarterbacks because they're supposed to win right away.
It's also because of his draft pedigree. I mean, he was a top 10 draft pick. So anytime you're a top 10 draft pick as a quarterback, you're going to have pretty lofty expectations. And, it's I almost think it's easier for the guys who just absolutely bust. Like who's a good example?
Josh Rosen.
Yeah, Josh Rosen. Than guys who are like kind of good that show you flashes, but can never
like a Bradford or a Bridgewater, and they kind of like bounce around. Although they make a lot more money, so I don't say it's harder for them.
Yeah, I'm just saying like from a perception standpoint because like if you're just good enough to stick around, people really start to hate you if you don't elevate your game. But it looks like Daniel Jones has really kind of figured something out and is becoming, at least a quarterback that you feel like you can win with. And I'll give you credit on another thing too. You were kind of off of Saquon Barkley and like rushing totals and stuff like that because you thought Daniel Jones would take away from that. You were spot on with that. Daniel Jones outrushed Saquon Barkley by 25 yards. So that was a really good call on your end as well. Although Saquon did have a lot of receiving
two
yards,
TDs,
but
sure. And when you look at, and that's also, so going back to that rushing yards, I think we only missed Etienne by 10 yards to McCaffrey, but 10 of those McCaffrey yards could have easily been reception yards. We know that. We know the reality of that. And we also know that had the game started like the second half started, he would have been shut down probably a little bit sooner, or slowed down sooner. So I was still pretty confident in that. We missed that by 10 yards. Missed the Tom Brady passing yards by 2 yards. That was beautiful. Brutal. 6-1 odds.
Missed the Ravens' lowest score by 3 points.
By 3.
We were this close on so many props. It was ridiculous. It's like we called everything perfect, but just not quite perfect enough. Like we had the idea of how like every game was going to go, and we were really spot on with most of it, but we were just off by like 2%, and that 2% was enough to keep us losers for the weekend. But anyways, I wasn't surprised by this. I'm really happy for the Giants. We'll see how they do against the Eagles. Next
we will
week.
see them win. Yeah, we will see that.
I don't know, man. That game's a lot scarier to me.
Hey, so we also talked about this. This is another fun thing for those out there who are like itching next time, maybe when the NBA championship or the NBA playoffs are around, to place a futures bet on somebody once the tournament begins. The Giants were 66-1. Caden and I texted afterwards. I said, look, I feel like that's a great line, but I feel like you could beat it if you just took a money line each round of the playoffs. And so I'm just kind of tracking that. I think 280 this week's a little too low. You could lock it in, but I was hoping that it would be around 350. So
I did the math on it, and if they were 3-1 underdogs the rest of the way, I think that it would work out to where it was almost exactly 66-1.
Yeah,
like
almost.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. I really figured they'd be about a 10-point dog to the Eagles. And maybe at some point, if the public money rolls in, you can get a better line on it this week.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid if they beat the Eagles, you won't get much better than 1.5-1 on the 49ers. And maybe that's the issue.
Yeah. There is some merit to the idea of doing it week by week. If you want to like take profit and you don't want to like fully commit to the bet, but you are going to, if you end up doing that, you are going to end up getting significantly worse than 66-1.
Yeah. Like right now so if we started with 50, you'd have 115 on plus 280. And that's gonna,
yeah. Anyway,
about $400. So yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the next game. We had, just a second, if my computer will catch up with me. We had the Bengals and the Ravens. This
weird game, actually. We didn't have this game flow.
We didn't. I mean, I had the Ravens beating the spread, which happened. I also had them not scoring more than 20 points, which happened. But I thought that they would score, like, in my heart, I honestly thought they'd score less than 10. Like, I did not think they would be able to score much at all. But
I felt like a 14-9, 14-10 kind of game that always felt like the Bengals game. But we were 2 inches away from a Ravens win here.
Yeah. Yeah, this game was kind of crazy. You had the 98-yard fumble return that ended up really kind of being the difference. Like Sam
Hubbard too. I like that guy. Yeah. He got the 98-yard run back. It was a lot of fun for him.
And I think this game, even though the Ravens lost, and I'm not a big moral victories guy or anything like that, But I do think that this is a testament to just how good that front
John
office
Harbaugh.
is, and how good that coaching staff is, and how deep of a team they have built defensively. And, even on offense, like on the offensive line, they have a lot of depth, a lot of talent. They draft so well. So
Yeah.
even whenever they're missing their star quarterback, even whenever they have so many injuries on offense and on defense in the secondary, they're still able to put together a competitive game. They're able to keep games close. They're able to win a lot of those close games. And the Bengals were just a little bit too much for them in this game. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much. I didn't think that Joe Burrow was overly impressive in this game. I thought it was kind of a ho-hum game for him. Tyler Huntley was pretty great. Like, I thought Tyler Huntley had a great game. I was very impressed with him. And I think Tyler Huntley could have a lot of run in the NFL as a backup. He does have some stylistic limitations because, he is kind of like, stylistically, he's similar to Lamar. He just does everything a lot worse. And that's why he fits with the Ravens so well. But if you put him on a team like the Cardinals with Kyler Murray, or maybe even the Bills with Josh Allen, I think that he would have like some merit as a backup, and I think he's going to have a really good career in that role. But he is definitely not a starter caliber player. But
you were talking about the coaching staff. I was just going to throw out, if I were a young player and getting drafted, the two teams, even though like I'm not necessarily a fan of either one, but you would have to be pretty happy to get drafted by the Ravens or the Steelers, because it's just like we even saw Mike Tomlin just year over year doesn't really have losing seasons. Those kind of franchises, it's like we always talk about. Cleveland is where quarterbacks go to die, and then you have Baltimore, Pittsburgh. They don't always feel like they can have the team. They're there. They're competitive. San Francisco is kind of like that.
They're two of the best franchises in all of football. Even when they're kind of having like they're in a bit of a down cycle, they're doing things that are just so impressive. If you're a player, if you're a wide receiver, you want to go to Pittsburgh. Like that is like the dream landing spot, because you're gonna turn into a star. They just know how to develop wide receivers. If you're a corner, or if you're a
linebacker, even
a linebacker, an edge rusher, both of those places. I was gonna say offensive line for Baltimore. I think they do a really good job developing offensive linemen. But yeah, you don't. If you are a wide receiver, you do not want to go to Baltimore right now. Though that's their biggest issue, and I think that it's kind of weird that they didn't take a wide receiver in this past year's draft. That was a big narrative around that draft, but I think they had an idea of what they wanted to do. They just had too many injuries to like be able to effectively execute it. But anyway, let's move on. That like you said, that was a really weird game. I don't really have too much to say about it, but other than I am really looking forward to the Bengals and Bills next week. But
I am glad that the Bengals did pull it off. I would have been let down to see. I mean, I don't think the Ravens really have a shot in the next round. Yeah, even though they're a great team.
But by the way,
Lamar comes back.
Yeah, by the way, we're going to be doing our divisional round preview in a couple days. So, if you're wondering why we're not doing that now, we're going to do that a little closer to kickoff time. So, yeah. Okay, Monday, last game of the wild card slate.
Yeah.
And this one was highly disappointing for me because I am a big Tom Brady fan, and Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in general were just not good. And it really makes me think, and it makes me wonder, is Tom Brady done? Like, I don't know if he's going to retire. I don't know if this is it, but is he, even if he comes back, is he just done as an elite, Super Bowl winning quarterback? And I don't think he is. I think that he still has some run left in him, but Monday did not do a lot to to give me a lot of conviction in that opinion, because he was just not good. He kind of turned it on later on in the second half, and he started to look really good. I think he threw like 200 yards in the last for 200 yards in the last like 17, 18 minutes of that game. But yeah, the first three quarters
were 203 yards would have been wonderful.
That would have been terrific, wouldn't it? But anyways, Dak, on the other hand, Dak looked like Dak looked as good as he has looked in the past 2 years. You know the run that he had before he had his like really bad injury a couple of years ago, where he was like by far the best quarterback in the league for like 4 weeks. He looked like that guy, and it was so surprising to see, because we have not seen that dude pretty much all year. We have not seen that version of Dak Prescott. And if he's gonna play like this, then the Cowboys all of a sudden become my Super Bowl, like my pick to make it out of the NFC. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say Super Bowl champs, but if Dak Prescott can play like this against the 49ers and against the Eagles or Giants, I don't see anybody beating the Cowboys. I really don't.
Dak, I'm excited for the matchup this week. That's another. I really like. Well, I immediately pulled up the lines once the games were decided, and I saw Jags plus 360, Cowboys are plus 170. That's something I like a lot. If you want to take a money line type of a thing, I really like them to win that game. I like the Bengals to overcome that. But I think when you look at this is where. So when we disagreed on game flow for these games, it's like it. For your vision of how this game played out, which would have been a Tampa win or a slight Tampa win, you needed Tom Brady to start pretty hot. And if he didn't, you're going to have issues. Whereas I feel like the Cowboys are one of those more well-rounded. Like, just a quick look at the box score. You see they rushed for 2.5 times the yards that Tampa did. Tampa just doesn't have a running game. They just don't. And I don't know it's that they don't have any skill at it. It's just that they don't care. They ran the ball 12 times. Is it because they got down quick? Maybe. But even down 14, we saw the Jags running the ball. Even down 27-0, we saw the Jags committing to the run.
Yeah.
Because it opens up so much. And you'd be hard pressed to convince me that Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette are not good enough to run the ball, and that the offensive line is that bad. I think this is probably more of an issue with coaching and an issue with Tom Brady having too much influence. That's kind of why I think, like, hey, look, I think it was almost a vanity project this season. Maybe he plays again next year. Like I said, if he goes to Las Vegas, I'm probably going to have to change my tune. I have deep respect for what he's done, but I'm not a fan of him, and I'm not a fan of quarterbacks taking over control of a team like I feel like he does. Because you have coaches for a reason. You have a front office for a reason.
I think that people underestimate just how big going from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles was. Because I was really optimistic about Todd Bowles coming into this season, but I think that he has proven by this point that he is not the dude. Like, I don't know. I almost think that they would have been better off going with Byron Leftwich as their head coach. I'm not a big Todd Bowles guy anymore. And that's crazy because I was really hype on him. What he did with that defense the previous 2 years was incredible. That defense was phenomenal. But his run, his offense is just really, really hard to watch, man. But
the same thing as Dennis Allen, like great defensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator, and just not quite. I don't know why. I can't explain it, and
It happens.
I hate beating up on coaches like really badly, but it's also part of it is like there's 32 other coaches out there that you have to compete with at that level, and I just don't think he's got it to be the top 32.
There are just some guys who are elite at being an offensive or defensive coordinator, but they just don't. That doesn't make you a good head coach if you're really good at coordinating one side of the ball. There's so much more that goes into it, the management of it, the player management, managing all these different personalities, having to oversee the offense and be responsible for that as well as the defense. And I don't think he's the dude. But one thing that I did say about this game was that if Tampa wanted to win, they would have to neutralize Micah Parsons, and they utterly failed at it. Micah Parsons finished with 3 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, and 2 quarterback hits. He was all over the place making plays. He didn't have that much volume, but the plays that he was making were extremely impactful.
If I'm not mistaken, that one of those pass deflections were in the first half when Brady and them were actually driving pretty well. They were on the Dallas side of the 50. It was 3rd and short, and he got up and just put it down, and they had to punt. Like, they had no choice. Yep. And that was a key point in the game, and I'm obviously uniquely aware of it because I had that being a high-scoring game, but I also had the sweat on the Ravens' low-score total, so I really wanted points from both teams here to exceed 17.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he made the plays when it matters. There's guys like that, like when Honey Badger was at LSU, it was like he made the play that matters when it mattered the most.
Micah Parsons is just so good. I think at this point, for me anyway, he has surpassed Aaron Donald as the best defensive player in the NFL. I don't see another player in the NFL that can elevate a defense the way that Micah Parsons does.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald was that guy, and Aaron Donald is still like an all-pro, like even defensive player of the year type dude. I just think at this point in their career, Micah Parsons is still really young. He's ascending. Aaron Donald is kind of on the back end of his career. He's he even thought about retiring last year. So at this point, I don't know. I just think Micah Parsons is a better player right now. He's so good. I love watching him play. He is as close to like unblockable in the pass rush as any player I've ever seen. But anyways, that is pretty much it. Like I said, we're going to be doing a preview for the divisional round in a couple of days. So, do you have anything else to say? Any other like overarching thoughts about this weekend?
No, I think just looking back at the scoreboard on the losers, I would say just some coaching things that we sort of touched on with Bowles. I think Kevin O'Connell's got a steep test the next 2-3 years. I love what he did with the Vikings this year, but if it's going to be this way every year where you have a great offense, bad defense, he's not made out for the job. I kind of feel like Zach Taylor had a little bit of that, I thought, last year, but I think at this point we can pretty much rest assured that they're doing well enough in all facets of the game that I'm excited for the franchise. And you have Joe Burrow, who I think is probably maybe the best long-term guy. I don't know. It's hard to say with this young group. But I'll say something else to watch is Dak is the oldest quarterback left in the playoffs this season.
Really?
So I think Dak, he's 29 years old. He's the oldest one. We're finally in the new generation of QBs. Like we're done are the days of Breeze, Rodgers, Rivers, Manning, Brady. And I love that era, but like I'm really excited for this era. But I'll also say that Dak's clock is ticking. I really think that he has to be seeing that and go, we got to go beat the 49ers. We got to go into Philly and beat them or, host New York, which would be amazing to see. I would love to see that match.
You are so convinced that they're beating the Eagles.
Well, I think New York is going to win the game against Philadelphia. Yes. Like I'm not saying like, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee. I'm not saying anything. I really like that New York's team. I really like teams that don't take the bye week. And I think that they're healthy enough that it's not going to beat them down. If they sustain some big time issues.
I don't want this video to get too long or anything, but I will say that if they are going to win that game, the fact that the Eagles are coming off that bye week could play a huge factor because we've seen both things happen. We've seen teams, rest up, get healthy, and use the bye week to carry them to a Super Bowl win. And we've also seen teams that have taken that bye week and completely lost all of their momentum, all their flow, and come out and get beat. So either thing can happen, and anyways, all right. I think we're good.